The Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by DraftKings, the Masters, picks, preview, course research, and everything that you need to know about the tournament before we get into the nitty-gritty of making our final selections, and of course, before you fill out your lineups, try to win that money after and when the tournament actually starts on Thursday. If you missed the DraftKings Breakdown Show, the first, the injuries, everything like that in long form with myself, Raza, and Kenny Kim, shame on you. Go download it, go watch it up on Mayo Media Network right now as we talk through all of the tiers of players, our initial thoughts, and how we're going to construct lineups. Me, Feinberg, and Cust on Monday. Me, Rob Pizzola, and Cam Stewart for Best Bets on Tuesday. Then Tambo and myself in studio on Wednesday to maybe take your questions, but realistically finalize everything, look at the weather, and try to make our DraftKings lineup. So you want to play in the best tournament on DraftKings? It's easy at the moment. It's not going to be easy very soon. It's down in the description, the Pat Mayo Experience Listeners League. $15 to play, 3 max entry, no rake. That means there's over $100,000 of rake-free guaranteed money in the prize pool. Now, it's Saturday as I record this, and it's already half full. So those spots are going to fly. They're flying off the shelf already. So go get your spot in the best tournament on DraftKings for the Masters right now. Turn $15 into $7,500. And hey, it's not like one of those tournaments where if you're not first, you're basically last. No. Flat payouts all the way down the list. So let's get that filled right now. Or if you just want to start a new chapter in the one and done, you're out for the race for the Mayo Cup. It's fine. Go to fantasygolfchampionships.com, link down in the description right now, and there's a $100, $50, and $25 major season one and done. Great way to get some of your money back and have something new and a fresh start to go into for the rest of the golf season. Or if you missed out on the big one and done, this is a way to get into a smaller one and done. The payouts are still pretty solid, so fantasygolfchampionships.com for that right now. I would also highly recommend that you subscribe to the newsletter because I'm giving away $600 in cash, over $400 in prizes, and we're probably going to be adding some throughout the course of the week. So the best way to do it, there's a bunch of ways to get ballots. Like if you sub to Mayo Media Network on YouTube right now after smashing the like button, well, you have a ballot in the draw. If you subscribe to the newsletter, completely free by the way, down in the description, you can find all of this info in short form and not have to hear me yammer on about it. But that also gives you 5 ballots into the draw. The way you can get the most ballots into the draw is subscribing to the Pat Mayo Experience audio podcast. That's easy stuff on Apple or Spotify or wherever it is that you listen to your podcast. But you need to leave a 5-star rating, something you enjoy about the show, and your Twitter handle, email, whatever that might be. If you've done it before, do it again to bump yourself up to the top of the list. And I'm throwing more money in the pot if we can get over 200 new reviews on Apple. If you do Spotify, it's hard to leave a review, so you can just rate it 5 stars, screenshot me on Twitter at the PME. You follow me on Twitter, boom. You're a new follower, you're in the ballot. Easy stuff. So there's lots of ways to get your hands on some of this money. We'll be announcing the winners on Wednesday's show with Tambo, and hopefully by then we've increased the pot to $2,000, depending on how much more money and prizes people want to put into everything. But I wanted to let you know how you can play in the best tournament. Go to fantasynational.com/Mayo, how I'm doing my walkthrough, get you 20% off. Those are all the deals, the giveaways, the ways that you can win free money. But what we need to do is figure out how we're going to win the money at Augusta National so we can all win together with an outright bet, or maybe we can all win a different DraftKings tournament because there's 3 millionaire makers on DraftKings this week, if that's your jam. So let's talk about it. The Masters this year, there are 89 qualified players as of this moment in the tournament, which starts on Thursday. But one more player can add his name to the list if they win the Valero Texas Open. If someone previously in the tournament wins, well, then there's no more spots. It's going to be capped at 89. So max 90 players in the tournament this week. Top 50 in ties make the cut. There is no within 10 strokes of the lead rule anymore. The COVID November Masters got rid of that. They never brought it back. So still over half the field is going to end up making the cut. Probably more than that once we get to like top 55, top 60, when people start tying inside the top 50. So the 6-6 percentage at the Masters generally is very high on DraftKings. So it's not so much about getting your guys through the cut line. It's about finding the guys who are, you need the winner, probably need second, and you need that $6,000, low $7,000 player who is going to finish inside the top 10 of DraftKings scoring. That's the only feasible path that you can find to the top of the leaderboard in these gigantic contests. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about, Bernhard Langer, he's killing it on the Champions Tour. He was top 10 here 7 years ago. It's like that's fine and everything like that, but you need DraftKings scores. If an old guy makes the cut at $6,100 and comes T51, you're dead anyway. It's like having a guy miss the cut because it's just not going to do you any good. So keep that in mind when you're putting everything together for your lineups this week. So let's talk about the course. Augusta National, it has been lengthened this year. It was 7,430 yards. It is now 7,500, and 10 yards, playing even longer on some of these days. It's a par 72, bent grass greens, and there's not really a need for an in-depth breakdown of the course. If you've made the leap to search out this video, you probably know enough about the Masters to begin with. But I can give you a general overview if you are a first-timer. If you're a first-timer, remember, those audio pods, those reviews are just waiting for themselves. You can find all that info down in the description, and especially in the newsletter. Get your 5 ballots into the draw by subscribing to that. It's completely free, and you'll get all this info sent to you right away. So highly recommend that you go do that. So it plays longer than the 7,510 yards anyway because there's so much elevation shift across the course, and there's really no rough on the ground, so it gives a lean to those who have extra distance off the tee because the fairways are also incredibly wide and incredibly generous, and even if you do put it in the pine straw, there's a lot of ways that you can get creative and get the ball out of there. We've seen a lot of creative players over the years, be it Reed or Spieth or Cam Smith or Bubba Watson. I mean, Cam Smith hasn't won this event. The other 3 guys have, but they're all very creative players when it comes to getting themselves out of trouble. So that's always going to be a benefit because eventually things are going to go awry at Augusta National, whether you want it to happen or not. History has proven that the ability to contend is not essentially a long drive contest, but it is the path of least resistance. And it makes the path to eagles and birdies, especially on the par 5s, far less resistant. And we're thinking about DraftKings scoring, just because your guy finishes in 10th place, that's great and everything. That doesn't mean he's going to finish top 10 in DraftKings scoring. We saw someone like Victor Hovland a few years ago. I think he tripled the first hole. He finished outside the top 20, but I think he finished 9th in DraftKings points because he made a hole-in-one. He had a bunch of birdie streaks, made a bunch of eagles trying to rally back. He just happened to make a bunch of bogeys. Not great for his outright odds, great for his DraftKings scoring. So the high scoring players you should probably keep in mind going through. Think about someone like Patrick Reed. He's not someone who's really known for his driving prowess, but he did gain over 3 strokes off the tee with his driver the year that he'd won. He'd only gained more than that in 2 starts previous over the 2 years. So it really did a lot for him that way. Tiger didn't gain a ton the year that he won. He gained like a stroke and a half off the tee, but he did gain over 9 strokes on approach. So approach plus driving a bit more of a lean than you'll see at your regular course. There's different ways that you can get around Augusta National. And I don't want to make it sound like this course is easy because it's not at all. There have been changes to 3 holes over the past 2 years. Last year, before the event, 2 of the holes got changed. Number 11 scraped most of the trees from the right-hand side of the hole and left just 3 trees. Now, guys got caught behind them, which really sucked, but it did make 11 a little bit easier. And the par 5 15th, the one that goes over the water, was lengthened by 20 yards. This year at Augusta National, we have another change, this time to the very easy par 5 number 13th. It has been lengthened by 35 yards up to 545 yards, up from 510 from last year. And the early chatter is this was from some of the live guys like Bubba Watson, who said he was having to take like 3 iron or 4 iron to a second shot over Rays Creek. I think that one's Rays Creek. Yeah, that one's Rays Creek. No, Rays Creek in front of 12. I can't remember if it's the same one or not. Who knows? You have to hit it over water. It's not like the most penal water in the world. Even if you do go in it, you can still get it up and down for par pretty easily. But if you're trying to attack in 2, the longer irons are going to come into play a little bit more than we've seen. Overall, when we take a look at the structure of the course, the average par 3 distance is 186 yards, but it's a little bit deceiving because one of them's super short, and number 4 is 240 yards, whereas the other 3 check in below 200 500. None of them are easy, all posting bogey or worse rates north of 20%, but hole number 4 is completely different. The bogey or worse rate is nearly 5 times the birdie rate from last year. So if you can get through number 4, chances are you're probably going to have a pretty good round, especially if you can birdie. It's like gaining 2 shots on the field. There are 10 par 4s average distance over 150 yards, 6 of them in between 440 and 465. 6 of the 7 toughest holes on the course are par 4s, and 2 of them will be staring you in the face when you start the back 9, number 10 and number 11. Number 11 will kill you over time. And the par 5s, the average distance is a little bit higher. All of them now at least 550 yards. Hole number 13 was normally the shortest one, but again, that one has really increased its length. It did carry an eagle rate of 3.2%. That's going to go down as of this year. So it's still it was the easiest hole on the course. We'll see if it remains the easiest hole on the course. I'm guessing that it will, but I will wager that fewer greens under regulation are going to be hit, and we're probably not going to have the bounty of eagle opportunities that we normally see at Augusta National. So let's jump over to fantasynational.com right now and check out the field for the Masters. I have the DraftKings pricing loaded in. If you go to DraftKingsSportsbook.com, all of the odds are in there already. However, I would wait at least until the reset on Monday morning to make any sort of wager. Everyone is completely overvalued in the market at the moment. You can even see when you go to the drop-down menu and we go to the DraftKings Sportsbook odds overall, just like 7-1, 7-1, 8.5 to 1 for Rory, Scheffler, and Rahm. Maybe one of those guys sticks at 7-1, but the difference between a 7-1 and an 850, let's say Scheffler drops down to plus 850, or they both drop down to 8-1. It's a pretty significant difference if you have to go to bet the very top of the board. And then it's generally normalized a little bit in this 16 to 20 range. Although, at the same time, you're probably not going to see Dustin Johnson at 25-1. He'll probably drop to 30. Morikawa is almost most definitely not sticking at 22. He'll probably be 30 at some point. And these guys in the mid-range, is Will Zalatoris, who's currently injured, going to be 35-1? No, he's probably going to be 50-1 or something like that. It's just, as the lead into the tournament goes, they don't normally adjust the odds until the Monday before. So unless you see something that is a glaring value, chances are, in 95% of the cases, you will either get the same or better number come the reset. So keep that in mind before you get all antsy, watch this video I need to bet that guy or that guy. Just give it a sec, take a breath, wait until at least Monday morning for these odds to normalize just a little bit. If you want to get the max value. Hey, listen, I don't want to stop you from wagering on anything. That's most definitely what they are not paying me to do. In the Masters DraftKings pricing list, to go through a few of the DraftKings trends from the past few years. Last year, 5 golfers north of 85 DraftKings points, and 4 of them were amongst the 8 most expensive in terms of the pricing. The Hideki Masters in 2021 was really weird. Basically, you needed 2 of your golfers with a price sum around $1,750 to do heavy lifting, whether that was Xander and Rahm or Zalatoris, Connors, Rose, and Bobby Mack. And then you needed to have Decky, Finau, Cam Smith, or Hovland, 2 or 3 of those guys. It was just a very select group of tiers that went up into it. And even all the trends from that year got completely thrown off. So it was just a very weird Masters when you started to look at the trends, how the lead-in form, everything like that. So let's take a look at the tournament history. There's no strokes gained statistics outside of very niche places on the internet that you want to go look, especially in real time too. I'm hoping that we're going to get our hands on those again. I'll add those to the newsletter every single night. So one of the reasons to join and subscribe to the newsletter is if I can find out the round by round strokes gained metrics, I will put those for you in the newsletter and send them out to you along with all of the micropods that we're doing after the rounds to get you ready. We have the Cut Sweat Live on Friday as well, if that's something you want to come and hang out with. To look at the past champions, obviously Scotty Scheffler won last year, Dustin Johnson won in 2020. Let's see. I guess they're both technically the 2021 Masters because we played Hideki won the April Masters. Will Zalatoris was in second. Zalatoris is second and sixth in both of his appearances lifetime. And then the November Masters, it was Dustin Johnson beat Cameron Smith. Dustin was on a killer run at that point. So when we start thinking about some of the lead-in form, you see Scheffler's lead-in form. From a year ago, he was unconscious. He had won 3 times in his past 5 starts coming in. The only one that he really took off was the Players, where he came 55th 2 starts previous. But other than that, win, 7th, 1st coming in. Hideki is the weird outlier of all of this. He had an all right run coming up to the Masters, but he was 30th the week before at Valero, didn't get out of his group at the match play, missed the cut at the Players. He did finish top 20 at the Workday at Concession and in Florida at the Arnold Palmer Invitational. That was fine and everything, but just it doesn't really mesh with what we've seen from past champions, as in lead-in forms, whether he's the outlier or we're living in a new norm, because Dustin, his lead-up, second, sixth, third, second, first, second. It's a pretty good lead-up. The hottest guys coming in, usually they have like 3 top 10s in the course of the year or a win somewhere along with very few missed cuts is generally what you want to be looking for. We'll take a look at Tiger in 2019. You think, oh, well, Tiger was past his prime at that point. He was playing some good golf. He was 20th at Torrey. He was 15th at Riviera, 10th in Mexico, 30th at the Players. He came 8th at the match play. So it's not like he had bad lead-in form. Even Reed. Reed was the first player to win since God knows when. I didn't even have my numbers go back all of that time. When you take a look at the lead-in form, he was the only player to miss the cut previously at Augusta National and win the next year since at least 2000. And I think the last one to do it was actually Tiger in like 1996, because he played it in 1995 as an amateur, missed the cut, and I believe he won it in his first year as a pro. So you'd have to go back almost 30 years to find someone who missed the cut the year before and won the next year outside of Patrick Reed, which is pretty crazy to think about. And when we think about Patrick Reed and what his lead-in form was like, it was pretty good. And listen, he went on an absolute heater. He almost got caught by Fowler and Spieth on the final day, but he was just good enough, especially on that first day. He was just scoring on all the par fours. Scoring on the par fours is really what's going to separate you from the pack, because everyone should be able to score on the par fives. The shorter players, maybe not so much, but even when you take a look at Danny Willett, now he won at -5, so that was a bit different. Like Sergio won at -9 in that playoff over Rose. Willett was 3 clear of Jordan Spieth by the end of it, but that was just a very difficult Masters. Generally speaking, we don't see that, although there is some weather in the forecast this week. I want to wait until we get closer to the actual event to put any stock into that. Strokes gained total the past 5 years at Augusta National. Rahm, DJ, Cam Smith, Justin Thomas, and Rory McIlroy are the 3 best. You see Scheffler is 8th on that list, although he only has 3 starts over that time. Will Zalatoris is 11th, and that's only in 2 starts, a 6th and a 2nd. So injury concern for some of these guys when we take a look at it. Hideki seems like he's fine. He's having a good go at the Valero Texas Open right now after withdrawing from the match play. Will Zalatoris, we have no idea. We haven't seen him since he withdrew from the match play. With whatever injury he has, he's got a new swing on the go, so I have no idea what to make of Will Zalatoris, because at $8,200 on DraftKings, he was shaping up to be one of the more popular players. Has never finished worse than 6th at this event, but since he won last year in Memphis, gets hurt, comes back, starts to play okay, gets hurt again after everything tails off for him a little bit. So I don't really know what to do with Zalatoris at the moment. Like Hideki in that range is a far more viable option for me, especially now that I've seen him play in a tournament. He's fine. Hatton had hand injury at the match play as well. He's $7,900. He missed the cut in Texas, but I think he was fine. Like the opening day, he was top 10 in approach. He lost like 2.5 strokes putting, and that's why he had a bad day. And then it all kind of went to shit for him on Friday in the worst conditions. Although he continued to drive the ball really well, the approach play just went in the toilet, and he didn't gain enough on the greens to sustain the cut. He missed by a stroke. I wouldn't be too worried about Hatton. If you were thinking about using Hatton in the first place, which I wasn't, I don't really like him in this tournament because he hates this course so much, and he really does let that get into his head a lot of the times. That wouldn't be where I would be going this week, would be Tyrrell Hatton. But that's me. I mean, if you do want to use him and you had a plan to use him, and Lord knows, he's going to be excellent leverage on the field when it comes to DraftKings ownership. We can take a look at that right now in terms of the ownership projections. Still very early in the week, obviously, because I'm doing this. It's only 2,100 lineups have been generated so far. That's going to be like 20, 30,000 by the time that Thursday rolls along. So a lot of these numbers are going to change, but you get an early sense of where people are gravitating towards. No one's really going to Sam Burns, who does not have a very good history. Not now. Sam Burns, 0 for 1 at the Masters, I believe, in his career. So again, if you want to use Fantasy National and go through everything, it's fantasynational.com/Mayo to get yourself 20% off any of the levels. He lost a half stroke to the field, ended up missing by a stroke or two in his debut last year. But it's nice that he's actually on the board for playing this, because the debutants, while they haven't won since Fuzzy Zeller, and we've seen some guys do pretty well in their debuts. Spieth ended up coming in second. Zalatoris comes in second. Guys periodically hop up. Minwoo Lee came 14th last year in his debut. So it's not all like, death, doom, and gloom, but you probably don't want to bet on those guys to win. And there's a few of them in the field this week. We can take a look at who some of those guys are. Let's see. Who do we have here? Tom Kim, Sahith Tagala, Taylor Moore, Mito Pereira, Kirk Kitayama. Chris Kirk is not. He hasn't played it in ages. Ryan Fox, Moronk, Svensson. Stallings has Kazuki Higa, Sam Bennett, and the amateurs who are all coming in. So we have around like 12, 13 debutantes in the field this week. And listen, just because Thigala hasn't played doesn't mean that I don't want to use him. Although we discussed it a little bit on the DraftKings show with Ben and Kenny, that if the conditions look like they're going to be really good, I think Thigala is a really nice play. Conversely, if the conditions are kind of bad, I kind of like Kitayama a little bit more, just based on the way that their styles go ahead. And listen, I'm not going to be afraid of Moronk. He might burn me, but I think that he has the required skill set in general to be a player at this event. He did not do well, obviously, at the Arnold Palmer Invitational. But since he's come over, 14th at Honda, the Genesis, he actually had a pretty good run. Almost made it through the qualifying stage at the match play. So I don't think that we should just be necessarily writing him off. He's such a good price. That's the only reason that I have the interest that I do in him. He's $6,400. I'm going to add him to the star. And yes, Cameron Champ, we need to make a look at it. I think he actually made the cut this week at the Valero Texas Open, which is shocking for Cameron Champ, because as you can see, he doesn't make a lot of cuts at all. But Cameron Champ is someone who has done a lot in his short career at Augusta National. It's kind of crazy to think about. No, he ended up getting cut. He ended up +2. So he's on the outside looking in. So his recent form coming in, 4 straight missed cuts. That's always fun to think about. 53rd at the Farmers. That's great and everything. Can't hit an approach to save his life, and then had missed cuts before that. But let's take a look back. He was 10th at the Masters last year. It's not like he had any form. He was stroking the ball equally as bad on his approaches. Miscut, 61st, 67th, miscut. Like, he had no finish inside the top. I guess he had one finish inside the top 60, none inside the top 45, until he won the 3M Open the year before that during the summer. So the year before, we talked about the Masters. So he was 10th last year. In 2021, he was 26th. I believe that was the November Masters. So let's take a look at that one. Where are you at, the Masters? Oh, no, we've gone too far. We've gone down into 2020, so we don't want to do that. We want to take a look at what he did at the Masters in 2021. So, no, he did not qualify for that one. He qualified for the one in April. So he was 34th, miscut, 48th, miscut. So it's not like his form is any different going into any of these. He did have an 8th at the Zozo, of course, where apparently he just plays really well. The tournament he plays really well, because those are two different courses in the different years at the Zozo. But even again, miscut, 42nd, 8th, 19th at the Masters. There was something about this course, and we have seen this over time, that certain guys, like the only reason that he is in the Masters right now is because he came top 10 last year, got the automatic berth going through. Nothing would point to him being good this year at the Masters. I don't want to sell you on, there's something that I see from, he quadruple bogeyed the second to last hole. That's how he ended up missing the cut at Valero. And then he came back and eagled the hole that no one gets eagles on. So classic Cameron Champ stuff. But where the fairways are so wide, like, how good he is off the tee with his driving distance just gives him an advantage. And for whatever reason, he can putt at this course. For whatever reason, Corey Connors and Will Zalatoris have figured out the green complexes at Augusta National. How? I have no idea. Why can't they do it anywhere else? Your guess is as good as mine. I do want to take a look before we jump into the modeling at some of the players who maybe have not fared so well at this course. So you can see all the old dudes, they're terrible. Hatton is to near the bottom end, minus 15.45 strokes gained total. He's made the cut for those 5 years. One top 20 in his career. Other than that, over the past 5 years, should I say. After that, no finish better than T44, so not really a great run. Noren has had 2 bad ones. Zach Johnson, he won back in 2003 or no, 2010. Now I can't even remember. He won it like +1 or something. It was like such an outrageous one. Peters has a top 5 in his career, but he hasn't made the cut in either of his past 2 trips. Sergio has obviously won. He finally rebounded a little bit last year, but he hasn't done shit since he won in 2017. 3 missed cuts. Didn't show up in 2021. It was a T23 last year. Homa finally made his first cut in his 3rd appearance a year ago. Obviously, he's upped himself a level, but it's never really been a good go for Homa. Realistically, if you just bet Homa at the Wells Fargo and in California, then you're probably pretty good to go. Woodland, Mac Hughes, even Adam Scott. Adam Scott has made the cut every single year, but he's still lost some of the highest amounts of strokes to the field over that time because the finishes just have not been good at all. And you can see his recent form is just not good. So far this year, 29th in a field of 40 people. 21st at the Sony, that's not bad. One of the weaker fields of the year. 65th at the Genesis. 31st at the Arnold Palmer. 71st at the Players. Didn't get at a group stage, and the approaches have been really bad at a lot of these tournaments. The driving's been good, the putting's been fine, but he's lost the ability to hit the irons, which is solving itself at Augusta. I guess he's a former champion. Maybe he can find lightning in a bottle. That's all great. Really wouldn't be counting on that from old Adam Scott this time around. So a big part of the process this week, when we think about how we want to do our selections. Obviously, you can't just take all the guys that everyone wants to play. So again, let's kind of shift back to what the ownership was telling us in a lot of these senses. Who are people going to use? Like, Spieth is going to be incredibly popular. Is Cameron Smith going to be incredibly popular? Probably not, unless he wins Live Orlando this weekend, which it doesn't look like he's going to. It looks like Brooks might actually win, which actually is a hilarious monkey wrench into this. But Spieth is going to be highly owned. I would guess that Rahm ends up as the lowest of the top 3. I'll probably go Rory, Scheffler, Rahm would be my guess in that range. I think that Thomas is going to come in lower than expected. As you can see, the calculated ownership is higher, but people just are not generating him in lineups, where Spieth is lower than his actual generation, because Spieth you can do as first man in or second man in. And frankly, I like Jordan Spieth this week, and you can use Jordan Spieth. You don't need to just abstain from using guys who are 20% owned. No, you can use those guys, but you need to find the guy falling through the cracks a little bit in order to make your selections. Like Jason Day, he's going to be very highly owned. I'm pretty sure Cameron Young is going to get to that point as well. Sung Jae Im, very highly owned, projected this week. I don't think Hovland is going to be that highly owned. Matsuyama is, 9%. That tracks for me. Right now, we're projecting Cameron Young at 11%. That's going to be like 15, 16%. Corey Connors is going to be super highly owned. Right now, we have him projected at 16.5%, but he's being generated so far in the first 2,000 lineups at a 30% clip. I could see him being the highest owned guy, especially if he wins the Valero Texas Open or finishes inside the top 5. And with the history that he has at Augusta National and the recent form where he's turning it around a little bit, was very good at match play, but got caught up against Cameron Young. Yeah, he's bad at the Players. Those are great ball striking numbers at the Arnold Palmer. He has great ball striking numbers this week in San Antonio. At the match play, the ball striking was off the charts. So he had a blip at the Genesis, a blip at the Players, and that can happen at the Players if you go into the water. All of a sudden, your stats look a lot worse than maybe they would be in actuality at a different course. So no one's going to be passing on Corey Connors. And look at these results. He's gotten better every year that he's played. Miscut, 46th, 10th, 8th, 6th. No reason to fade him unless he is the guy in your lineups that you think, you know what, I'll just use. I like Justin Rose this week, although it looks like he's carrying a bit of ownership right now. I love Minwoo. I have a bet on Minwoo to win, and 12% seems even lofty for Minwoo, especially if Brooks gets going whatsoever and people start talking themselves into Brooks. So then you would have Brooks and Connors at exactly the same price as Minwoo. Minwoo could slip to like 7-8%. A 7-8% Minwoo Lee, I like a lot. One of the best players in the field off the tee. As you can see, at the Arnold Palmer, he drove into the water a bunch of times. That wasn't great. But everywhere else, since he started to come around, and he almost escaped his group as well at the match play. But, these are legit fields at the Honda, 4.3. 4.4 strokes gained off the tee. And like I said, driving distance, one of the longest players in the field, despite not being a big guy. You just need the approaches to come along for the ride. And we've seen him at the PGA Championship last year against the best players in the world, where you can go bombs away. He missed the cut, but in 2 rounds, gained 3.2 strokes off the tee. And we're not factoring anything that he has done over in Europe, or at least what he's done on the DP World Tour because it was over in the Middle East, but he had a 2nd and a 13th, playing against a lot of some of these guys from the Live when they played on the Asian Tour event. So he's having a very good year. It's a bit underrated. I know us in the community, people who watch the show every single week, they know about Minwoo. They know they probably are holding the same 150 to 1 ticket that I am on Minwoo Lee at the moment. But if you're just kind of new to this, Minwoo is a good play. Siwoo is a good play. I mean, people who use Fantasy National know about Siwoo, but he is had a very good Masters track record over the years. We take a look. I think he's made the cut every time that he's played it. No, he's a lot like, discount Corey Connors in this effect. He broke his putter one year, was putting with a 5-wood, and still came 12th, I think. But he missed a cut in 2017, 24th, 21st, 34th, 12th, 39th. Beacon of consistency. And if you are looking for players outside of the very top end Roms and Schefflers who've been winning every single event, Siwoo Kim is a winner on the PGA Tour this year. Abraham Answer actually has some pretty good lead-in form. It's all live stuff, so that's not factored in to what he's been doing overall. But I believe he skipped Valero last year. Then he ended up missing the cut. So he was a bit banged up last year, but his 2 other starts, 26th, 13th, has a win over in the Middle East this year on the Asian Tour, the same one with Minwoo Lee when all the live guys were allowed to go play. So pretty good form for Abraham Answer. He's one of my favorite of the live guys coming in at the moment. And then we keep going down. It seems like Keith Mitchell is going to garner some ownership from the bottom. It seems like Tom Hoagie is not especially popular, but these are the guys that could pop a little bit. Danny Willett, a former winner, former friend of mine, obviously, is popping. It's also saying that Cameron Champ is going to carry some ownership. I don't believe that for a second. If he is higher than 4% owned, I don't want to lose all my money, but I'd be willing to wager a healthy amount on Cameron Champ because I can see people going to Kokrak instead. I can see people going to Willett. I know Fox had a disastrous run at the Valero Texas Open. He's also a debutant. That's not great, but I can see people going to him. Bubba's actually playing pretty well on Live this week, too. Only 5%, but he's only actually being generated in 1% of lineups. You can get the difference going in, and you'll be able to track this in real time if you have the Fantasy National membership at fantasynational.com/Mayo. 2 other things that I want if you're into free money, because who isn't into free money? At least that's the way that I would frame it, that there are 2 other things that you can do this week. If you go to League Safe Locks app, it's completely free to use, completely free to join. There's a tournament in there. It's a yes or no contest. It's called the Mayo Masters, and it is completely free. There's $500 in the prize pool. It'd be like, is there a hole-in-one? Yes, gets you so many points. No, gets you like 1 point or something like that. Whoever has the most points ends up winning. So again, it's League Safe Locks. You can download it on Android, iPhone, whatever it might be. The link is down in the description if you want to go check that out. Also, BetSperts. My buddies over at BetSperts, really good dudes. They're running a win an all expenses paid round of golf with Paige. You can go hang out with Paige for the day if you win their free pool. So I suggest that you go over to BetSperts or hit the newsletter because all the details will be into the newsletter. Anyone who beats Paige can win. It's free to enter as well, and it's all expenses paid round trip, and you get to play at Liberty National with Paige. So our friends over at BetSperts are doing that. More information, again, down in the newsletter. Completely free to join, and we'll get you those ballots in the over $1,000 in prizes and cash giveaway. It's time to talk about the model. Let's shrink this down past 24 rounds. There's many different ways that you can create your modeling this week. And is mine going to be the best? Obviously not, because I never win the $1 million at the Masters. So you can go create your own at fantasynational.com. You go to the custom stat model. Let's load this in. What do I got for the Masters right now? Strokes gained off the tee, 20%. Approach, 30%. Par 5s, 5%. Strokes gained par 4. You know what? I'm going to get rid of the par 5s. And since the easiest one has been elongated this year, I'm going to go down to par 5 scoring. All right, there's par 4, par 5, 550 to 600, because that's where the majority of them are going to fall now this week. And throw those in at what I have, 6%, 5%. Driving distance, 10%. Par 4s, 450 to 500, 5%. Proximity, 175 to 200, 5%. You can even boost that to over 200 because of the par 5s. But I think that we have enough par 5 stats in there right now. So I think that we're good to go on that front. Strokes game, short game, which is a combination of around the green and putting, 10%. Eagles at 5%. Because you're not making eagles, you're probably going to be lagging behind a little bit. And this might change with the weather. You can load in one of the harder models if you want to, or change up what you do, put more emphasis on short game or bogey avoidance or anything like that, you can always go in and customize everything that you want. So this is set to the past 24 rounds, short-term modeling going in. Not a surprise, the top 3 players in the field are 1, 2, and 3. Scotty, Rahm, and Rory all going in. I did point out, though, Rahm's on a bad run right now for him after being unstoppable. Arnold Palmer Invitational, he's the first round leader, ends up coming 39th. Has to withdraw from the players, loses in the group stage. But before that, he was untouchable. And at the Masters in his career, he had a bad 2022, sure. He has bookend 27th. 27th in his debut, never missed a cut. 4th, 9th, 7th, 5th, 27th. His worst finish is 27th. So this might be the year for old John Rahm. I mean, you're terrified of Scheffler. You're terrified of Rory, obviously. But I'm thinking if I have to get money down on one of them, it still might be Rahm this year. We'll see where I end up going with the betting card, because right now all I do have is that Minwoo Lee 150-1. Although Victor Hovland is someone that I talked up a little bit on the DraftKings show that I really like this week. You can see the ball striking numbers have been amazing. He sucked at the match play, and the dude can't chip to save his life. This is very well known. But he can go out and score. Check out his Masters. Nothing great, but nothing bad at the same time. And he's had some rough goes on some of these holes and dug himself early holes, 27th, 21st, 32nd. Can a player like him with such a bad short game ever win at Augusta? Yes, I think that they can, because the ball striking is so good. He just needs the putter to come along. And the last time Victor missed a cut was at the Genesis Scottish Open last July. So it's not like he's playing poor golf. He's won one of those like jabroni events, the Tiger Hero World Challenge, whatever it might be. I know that, I mean, I don't know if I'm going to get there with Hovland actually winning, but I think that course familiarity goes a long way. It's a lot like Morikawa. Like Morikawa can chip sometimes. The places where he can chip, historically he chips very well, and we've seen him chip very well at the Masters. 44th, 18th, 5th. His trend line is actually where you kind of want to be to win the Masters in your 4th time around. And he almost got out of his group at the match play. I believe he ended up losing in the playoff for lost 2-1. He was crushing it for 2 days. The Morikawa special. Be awesome for 2 days and then just kind of be mediocre for the other 2. Hopefully he can get that behind him. But the ball striking is still very good. You know, can he chip, can he putt? He can always putt himself out of a tournament. He can always chip himself out of a tournament. But he does have 4 top 15s and 2 missed cuts to go along with him. That's his year so far. It's still pretty good. It's just where we put a lot of emphasis on him. And he blew the Century Tournament of Champions. He was so good at the Players until moving day when everyone went 7 under and he was like 2 over. And it just took himself out of the tournament. But, you saw it. He's been pretty good. The stats would agree. He's 9th over the past 24 rounds. And he doesn't really fall outside of anywhere. Thomas, Hatton, Homa, and Cantlay. So I'm probably not going to play Homa. I'm probably not going to play Hatton. Finau's a lot like Vic in that way, where he has better Masters success over the course of his career, but the ball striking numbers have just been really, really good for him, especially on the approach. It's just he can't cobble anything together since he won in Houston during the swing season. No poor performances, but no great performances at the same time. But he's 8,900. Victor is 8,500. I think I might want to go for the savings and probably the ownership break that goes into it too. I'm still wishy-washy on Finau at the moment. But Thomas can bust you in one of these tournaments because he's Justin Thomas, and that's just what he does. He can decide not to putt, and that's the end of him. But he hasn't missed a cut, again, since the Scottish Open. Just the putter has been fucking frigid the entire time. But we know he has the Masters greens on pretty good lockdown. He's had great run, never missed a cut in his career, 2 top 10s the past 3 years. Let's see here. Hasn't finished worse than 22nd in 6 of his 7 starts. So historically, the consistency has been very good for him coming in. He's being a bit overlooked because he's, like Morikawa in a way, has just been so disappointing this year. And we know the around the green game is elite. He can scramble with the best, and we talk about creativity, getting yourself into trouble. Justin Thomas is one of those guys. Scotty is also one of those guys too. And we saw that happen for him on his path to the green jacket a year ago. But Thomas, most definitely, wasn't really in the mix of the Players. Valspar had 2 bad rounds, 2 good rounds. Arnold Palmer, Genesis, could have won in Phoenix, but started out just a bit too slow. So again, hasn't been a great year, but you can see the off the tee getting better over the past 3. The approach very consistent. Can he find a putter? Well, he's done it before at the Masters in terms of figuring out the greens. Why not again? So other guys that rate out very highly, Xander. There's Dustin, although that's not pulling from anything current. Having a good run in Live Orlando at the moment. The Live guys are just going to be gut feel, I think, for players who have done it before at this course, maybe they come in decent form, which would be the Niemans and Answers of the world, or just your historically good players at this tournament. Bubba, Sergio, just Dustin Johnson. I'm going to use Dustin Johnson. Obviously, he's the best live player, in my mind at least. Maybe Cameron Smith is probably the best at the moment, but Dustin is, pretty quality as well on the same level, and he's just a lot cheaper. I mean, you see Cam Smith is $9,900 or $9,800. Dustin Johnson's $8,800. I'll take the $1,000 worth of savings for the former Masters champion, who I think he's really only gearing himself up for 4 events. That's what he's doing now. Zalatoris, his numbers are not skewed as of yet, but it's funny that he's still been able to prevail even through the injury. It's just I don't know where his status is. Taylor Moore's a debutant, but he's been playing excellent golf for what we want to see at Augusta National. Mito's also a debutant. I love Justin Rose. I might end up betting on Justin Rose. He's another one who has a win already this year. Obviously, he has a tremendous lineage of success at the Masters, losing in that playoff to Sergio, but even over the years, he's just been so good. You see all the top 10 finishes. He missed the cut a year ago, but that's, frankly, not typical for him. And you can see the approach play has been tremendous. He skipped the match play to focus on this. And if this can come through at all, I know these are shorter courses, TPC Sawgrass and Copperhead for the Valspar, and the Players' Championship. But him gaining strokes off the tee, that is, you can see the numbers in front of you. That's something new. He lost strokes off the tee at Pebble and still won that week. So if he can just be around field average, a little bit above off the tee, and continue to have that excellent approach play for him, I just think he's a nice pivot play. I think he might be a nice outright bet with the history that goes along with it, especially if the weather's not as great, where the winning score doesn't need to be -16, -17. If we can get one of those -9, -10, -11 years, I feel like Justin Rose should be firmly in the mix because he's not quite at that age where he's a write-off yet, but he's getting closer to it. He only has so many more of these left in him to go through. We take a look at who are the worst guys in this field. Per the modeling, the guys who we have no stats on, Kisner is like he's $6,200. He also rates out horribly at this course. Of the guys that you might want to play, Horschel, terrible numbers. Mac Hughes, terrible numbers. Aaron Wise is not a debutant. He actually has a T17 in his only start at Augusta National a few years ago. Moronk is a bit different because he does the majority of his work on the DP World Tour. So everything that gets factored in for him, he only has 20 qualified rounds, and they're usually at the U.S. Open, Scottish Open Championship, Bermuda for whatever reason, and then 2 decent performances this year. You can see the approach play, but he had 2 really horrendous approach play tournaments, so that's really affecting his numbers, and some of those were 2 years ago. So you might want to put more stock into what he has been doing recently rather than what he did 2 years ago. Champ has just been outright bad, but you see the driving distance, still third, still top 30 in strokes gained off the tee. Harmon's another one with very bad stats of guys we need to dig a little bit deeper on. When you get to guys down in the $6,000 range, their overall ranking doesn't really make that big of a difference. What you want to look for are guys that excel in certain areas. Do they pop anywhere? Like you see, Seb Straka, 5th in this field. Par 4s, 450 to 500 yards, despite playing terrible golf. Still 21st in approach. It's just the rest of his game that absolutely sucks. When he misses the green, he's absolutely screwed and makes bogey or worse. But that would be a key point for him. Just like, hey, that's pretty good. Nas numbers, he ranks first in approach, or first in proximity from 175 to 200, 6th in approach. But these numbers are Lord knows from when. He's enjoying to live. So his last numbers are from his back-to-back miscuts at the Open and U.S. Open. After that, it was the Colonial from last year. So that's almost a year ago. So you can't put much weight into the numbers that you're getting. It's not like we're getting decent numbers at a live. It's like, oh, how many greens in regulation did you hit at this course where everyone hits green in regulation? Like, it doesn't tell me anything. Champ, the driving distance is super good. Kokrak, his driving distance is going to be up there as well. What is this? Eagles gain for JT Poston. Okay, that's about it, though. Gary Woodland, driving distance and strokes gained off the tee. Feel like old Gary has not been very good at Augusta during the course of his career. Miscut 40th, miscut 32nd, miscut 26th and 24th. So over a decade ago, he finished inside the top 25. Hasn't done that any time over the past 11 years. So maybe in not his best season, we don't go to someone like that. So what I want to do now is this the baseline modeling that I have thrown in. What I want to do is build a mixed condition model. And this is one of the features of fantasynational.com. Again, fantasynational.com/Mayo, 20% off any membership level. What you do to put anything in. Because I want to use my rankings that I have right now over the past 24 rounds. So you add a column to your mixed condition. So what do I want to use? I want to use my rank. So my rank of all these stats into one over the last 24 rounds. We can choose to weight that rankings model. Ooh, that's almost an M. There we are. And we're going to add that to our mixed condition model. Now we're going to switch back over to putting. Putting is such a feel game, especially for how fast these greens are at Augusta National and the experience that you can get on them. Some guys get on there like, these are perfect. Like, I can't figure out how Will Zalatoris and Corey Connors can navigate these greens, but for whatever reason, because they're so fast, I think it mitigates how bad of a putter some guys are. As crazy as that is, like, they hit it through all the breaks anyway, so they can't even do that this time around. They have to slow down their stroke a little bit and get it on the right line. Their lag putting has been absolutely tremendous. So there are two things that I want to look at here. I want to go down on the left-hand side of the screen and go to green speed. Lightning and fast are the two that I want to use as we try to separate this out. So you don't get very many turns. Let's take a look at Scotty Scheffler. The tournaments where you have lightning fast and fast greens. So far this season, the players, 2 rounds of the Arnold Palmer Invitational that were weighted that way. It's above a certain number on the stimp meter. The Genesis, all 4, 2 of them in Houston, or 2 of them in Phoenix, 1 of them in Houston. CJ Cup had them, Tour Championship had them. So a pretty good sample of fast to the fastest that you're going to find. And the Masters is the fastest that you are going to find. So let's throw that in. We're going to take an average. It's funny because Scotty kind of sucks on these greens, but Scotty is kind of a shitty putter anyway. That's the funny part. And he's still winning these tournaments, which is the crazy thing. Wins the Players, he gained 0.1 strokes on the green. He was field average, 4th at the Arnold Palmer, lost a stroke to the field. Usually when you see a lot of these guys and they're winning tournaments and they're during this big run, you can even see it with Scotty's wins last year when he went through that great run. Yeah, in Phoenix, 6.5. Arnold Palmer, 4.3. At the Masters, he did gain a bunch. The match play, he gained a bunch. That's not the case this year. He has been bad on the greens. His ball striking has just been out of this world. And listen, good putting can overcome bad ball striking some of the time. Good ball striking with average putting will win you tournaments. It usually doesn't work the other way around unless you break records for how well you're putting. But these are just on the fast and lightning greens, the best putters in the field on this speed of green. Rahm, Burns, Homa, Wise, Cam Smith, your top 5. Bryson, Day, Fitz, Tyrrell Etten, and Tom Hoagie, your next 5. Hey, Freddie Couples is in there as well. Good for Fred Couples. So what we're going to do is factor this in. So we're going to add that in. We're going to say strokes gained putting, last 24 rounds, fastest greens. So we're going to add that in. So now we're going to try something different to see if we have enough of a sample to make this legitimate at all, because these are pure bent grass greens. We haven't seen any bent grass on the PGA Tour, pure bent grass, since the year started. So I'm curious now to know, when I click on Scheffler, how back this goes. So the first one that he had played in that is pure bent on lightning fast greens, the BMW Championship last year during the FedEx Cup playoffs. Before that, St. George's in Toronto for the RBC Canadian Open. Charles Schwab at Colonial. Byron Nelson. So then the BMW the year before. So we're back to 2021. That might make it not the greatest. So we have one of two things that we can factor into this. We can weight this one a little bit. So let's do that. We're going to say past 24 rounds, lightning, fast, plus bent grass. And overall strokes gained putting. So last 24 bent plus fastest is what we're going to throw into fast. That's how my son would say it. We should put the T in there so it makes some sense. You don't need to spell it correctly, by the way. That's just how I am choosing to go through it. So we're going to add that one in. Now we're going to turn off fast and lightning as a part of this. And we're just going to go pure bent grass greens and see if that gives us a little bit different of a weight out. So Cantlay all of a sudden becomes the best. When we take a look at Cantlay, what are we using for bent grass greens? Let's see. Summerlin at the Shriners, BMW Championship, Detroit for Rocket Mortgage. The Memorial is one that sneaks in here. It's funny that the Memorial, I guess Scheffler may not have played it because those would be like lightning fast. We've just seen a lot of good crossover between Memorial putting and Augusta putting because, Jack designed. It's very close to Augusta in some of the way that the greens are actually laid out, and they generally play at the same speed. Another spot where John Rahm and Patrick Cantlay have both had a lot of success throughout the course of their careers. So we're going to add this one in too. So past 24 rounds on average per round, Cantlay, Keegan, Finau, Rahm, Homa. Rahm and Homa keep popping up in all these ones. And this is just bent. This has nothing to do with speed. Burns, Rose, Noren, Rory, Hovland are your best. Then you have Svensson. Svensson, bent grass and fast greens apparently are absolutely his jam. So these ones are just bent, past 24 rounds, strokes gained putting, last 12, just bent. Just get bent, pal, is what I want to say to whoever the worst is in this number. Bernhard Longer. Hardly knew you. Oh, that's cute. Ryan Fox, my guy, is down there on that list. Only, 8 rounds of real... He's played 24 rounds, but most of them are not weighted because it's the Open. It's the Chinese event in 2018. He hasn't putted on bent on a PGA Tour since the U.S. Open in 2020. So I wouldn't put much stock into those specific stats. Sometimes you do need to dig in a little bit more to make sure that there is some sort of context to the numbers that you're looking at. Are these still the same players? Who knows? We don't know. We don't know. And it's funny because Morikawa has putted well on these greens and chipped well on these greens. He's also chipped and putted, I believe, pretty well at Memorial. Like he won the workday that was there during COVID. And then he lost in a playoff to Cantlay at Memorial. Yeah, and that was the year he putted very poorly, then putted really well. It's funny, it's the same thing at Genesis. He had the minus 6.7, then 6.8 gained at Riviera. Like that's a huge swing. It's a 14-stroke swing just on the greens year over year. And we saw that at Memorial too. So he started to figure them out a little bit. Did not have a great go last year. It was mainly the chipping where he had been very good previously to that. But again, as I've said, in these numbers, we'll showcase that there for you, that when Morikawa doesn't chip or putt himself out of a tournament, he's going to come inside the top 3. So you have to cross your fingers and pray it's not one of those weeks. So let's put that in. So that's how the mixed condition model sorts itself out at the moment. So we want to unlock the value of this. We do want to weight the rankings more than anything else because we don't want to put all of this overemphasis on putting. So let's weight this at like 75%, or even just say, 75%, 77%, 75%. There we go. That seems pretty good. And we'll weight the rest at 8%. Maybe we want to go to 70%, weight the other 3 at 10% apiece. You can weight these any way you want. You can add more things into this mixed condition model if you want to. But when we load in our results, who is the best when it comes to the overall numbers that we're looking at, plus the putting? It's funny, even with the horrible putting, Scheffler is still number 1 in these rankings. It's very similar to what we have seen. It's still, actually, so that's the My Rank button. There we go. So the My Rank overall, when we include putting, Rahm, Homa, Cantlay, Finau, Hatton, Rory, Hovland, Scheffler, Day, DJ, Rose, Xander, Taylor Moore. Really? Wow. Man, for a debut Tom, maybe he actually is a pretty good look. Sungjae, Keegan, you probably don't want to use Keegan at the Masters. Never really had a good go at this tournament over the course of his career. Thomas, Keith Mitchell, Cam Young, Cam Smith, Morikawa, Spieth, Bryson, Kirk, Neiman, Fleetwood, Svensson, and Svensson's mainly from all those putting numbers. Who else gets elevated by the putting numbers? Sam Burns, although it seems like he's shaken. Whatever was wrong with him, and he did it pretty well. Taylor Moore coming in. He won Valspar, but yeah, he's just been playing good golf, even in the elevated events. Nothing crazy, but top 40s in both. Had the run of 3 straight top 20. He actually has like the numbers that would showcase like someone who could win here. The only thing really working against him, he's never played at Augusta National in a competitive event. I can't speak to anything else. But it is nice to see Victor hop over Scotty. If you need justification for any of these things, the guys that rate out very poorly in these numbers. Actually, you know what we can throw into this? Let's run one more thing. You can go down the right-hand side. We're going to go back to strokes gained. Just strokes gained overall. We'll use strokes gained total for this because we don't have the per number stuff. And you can do this for any of the numbers, driving distance, par 4 scoring, par 5 scoring, whatever it might be. We're just going to go to Augusta National, GC. Just isolate that course by itself. And we're just going to get numbers from the past 12 rounds played overall. So max the past 3 years. If someone skipped an event, then we can go back a little bit further. Well, we don't have any of the numbers for approach or because they're all proprietary. That's why we can't get our hands on them. What we can have is strokes gained total. And we can average that out. And if you want to bake in course history, this is a way to bake in course history. So your per round leaders over the past 12 rounds, over the past 3 times each of these guys have come to the course. Now, obviously, if they miss the cut twice, then the past 5 years of when they come. You understand what I'm talking about here. These are per round strokes gained total. Zalatoris, Cam Smith, Scheffler, DJ, Hideki. Those are your top 5. Now, you can go back a little bit longer if you want to. You can go shorter if you want to. But this is something that we can add into the mixed condition model too. So we can call that strokes gained total. We can go last 12 course history. That's almost how you spell history. Of course, hiss, like a snake. So we can add that in now. Connors, Rory, Rahm, Thomas, Shane Lowry are up there as well. I can't believe Lowry is that high. I know Lowry came third last year. Just in my mind, he's been terrible at the Masters. I know, like I said, came third. It's pretty good. But yeah, wow. 25th, 21st, third. You want to talk about a guy who can't putt to save his life. Like, good Lord. It has been truly horrendous on the greens. The one time that he putted well was the 1 week where he couldn't drive or hit an approach. Always how it goes, right? The guy you need to finally make a putt makes putts, but he's putting for bogey because he hit it into the water, which is something he doesn't normally do. Maybe I should give more lenience to Lowry here, that Rose Lowry range, instead of Fleetwood, and continue to use Minwoo, whatever it might be. Morikawa and Minwoo, 1.3 per round on the gain, same as Taylor Gooch and Cameron Champ. Gooch has played this once, and that is a sample of 3 years for Cameron Champ. He's higher than Sungjae in Sungjae's 3 years that he's played here. So worth noting on that end, we've factored that in. And like I said, you can just continue to isolate by Augusta National. And you can go into any of these, like the par 3 efficiency. If you want to see who plays well and who doesn't play well on the par 3s from each of the ranges, we have those numbers. So on average, the guys that gain the most on the par 3s, Hoagie, Poston, 4 rounds, 2 rounds. After that, Cam Smith, Thomas, Morikawa, DJ. Generally guys that hit their longer irons really well. You see Scheffler up there as well. So you can continue to add all of these in. I would think that par 4 efficiency is probably going to be the thing that matters the most when you're trying to tread water or make a move. And you can see the guys that kind of pop up every year, they're the ones who do well. So let's add that in as well. So last 12 Masters par 4 average. And we'll put in SG par 4, and we'll add that to the mixed condition model. Now we can go back, and we can rejig everything. So we probably don't need to, we'll keep those all at 10. We'll decrease the modeling to 45, and apparently it's now 30. Masters course history, let's make that 25%. And we're going to make the par 4 scoring average 15%. And we're going to shrink all of the puttings down to 8. And that will make 36 for the ranking. So you can see it on the screen right now. The model is 36, course history 25, the par 4 average at Augusta only 15, and then 8, 8, and 8 for all of the putting ranges that we're looking at. The lightning fast, the bent grass only, everything like that. And we'll see how everything shakes out. You can see the individual rankings in each of those numbers. But in terms of the overall weighting, it's Rahm number 1, Rahm, Cantlay, Rory, Scotty, Dustin. Okay. Who are the best of the worst players? Rose and Kevin Na. But again, the Kevin Na numbers, I mean, they continue to kind of pop out. I wish he was playing better on the Live Tour. And you can sort these by salary range too. So when you kind of take a look, you see Spieth does not rate out all that well. He's still number 20th, so he rates out fine. Homa and Morikawa both don't do as well. Now, Morikawa's is almost entirely putting related, as you can see. And Justin Thomas is 9th, even with all of the terrible putting. You can see Spieth's putting numbers are no great shakes either. He's just very average across the board. Homa, he gets factored in. He gets really dinged when you take a look at how he has done at the Masters over the years. So it depends on how you want to weight them. You can make those any way that you want. And I would highly encourage you to go in and screw around with this. Cam Young doesn't rate out well. Neither does Burns. Hideki's like 24th. Just trying to find guys who rate out really well that maybe are down in the pricing. Sungjae, Lowry, Hatton, and Rose, all inside the top 15. Abraham Answer, number 21. Minwoo's number 52 because he has very few stats to actually go off of. But 22nd for Answer is a pretty nice look. Taylor Moore still 17th. Maybe Taylor Moore is going to end up getting a lot of buzz this week. Kevin Na, number 12 at $6,500. He is the best one of that bunch. Other than that, it's Champ at 41, Seamus Power at 39, Tom Hoagie at 34. When we're looking strictly at these numbers, Louis just lost in a playoff on the Live Tour like 2 weeks ago. He's 27th in these numbers, only $7,200. So there's different ways that you can shake this out and different ways that you can look at it. And that's what I would recommend that you do. Like, you need to go with your convictions this week, especially for your DraftKings lineup. You're going to need the guy who wins. You're going to need the guy who comes in second. Already mentioned that, but you can't just use all of the most popular guys. Use 4 of the most popular guys, but you need to find the hidden gem somewhere. And you can go with me and use Justin Rose, who might even not be all that hidden, or Victor Hovland, or Minwoo Lee, whoever it might be. Cameron Champ is Champ and Moronk are probably going to be my separators from the group, and we'll see where their ownership shakes out. Maybe it's someone different from you. Maybe it is Louis, who no one really wants to go to. Or maybe it's a different type of build that Tambo and I are going to talk through on the Wednesday show, and you can try to think of different ideas off those different ideas. Probably the best way to do it. But using the tools at Fantasy National, I always find is the best way to make myself unique. So you can too, fantasynational.com/Mayo to get 20% off any level. Hell, just get the weekly. And I'm giving away 2 free Fantasy National memberships as a part of the giveaway with the $600 that I'm doing as well. The issue is that you need to do all the ballot draws, the Apple review, sub to the newsletter, all that stuff to get your ballots. But in order to win the free year of Fantasy National, you need to already be a Fantasy National member. All right? So that's going to do it on the Pat Mayo Experience Research Show. I hope you got a lot from that. We're going to have all of the picks scattered each of the next 3 days, then recap, then cut sweat, then recap, then recap. It's going to be great as we try to project forward. It's my favorite week of the year. I know it's some of your favorite weeks of the year as well. So please tune in to the Pat Mayo Experience all week long. Leave us those ratings and review. This is all completely free content, and this is what we ask from you guys to help us out a little bit, try to vault us up on the Apple charts, on the podcast charts. And maybe, just maybe, we can be the #1 betting and fantasy sports podcast in the world. We're very close in a general week. Masters week, we got up to 2nd in the world last year because no one can beat the fantasy footballers, my pals, but it'd be nice to do that at least once during the course of the year because Masters week, we want to own it. It's such a big part of me and the community who watches this show. So if you're brand new, welcome to the fold. We'd love to have you all year, but even if it's just this week, welcome, all right? Smash the like, sub to the channel while you are here, and I will see you next time.
Mayo Experience! Experience!